Hey all, welcome to ShareTreck. Today is Saturday and this is our Saturday edition. And I'd like to present today my opinion on CRISPR Therapeutics and Viacyte collaborating together for type 1 diabetes. Because most often we talk about sickle cell disease and we do technical analysis and we leave it at that. We want to go a little bit deeper. And I hope you like this topic. So let's get started. In terms of scope of discussion, what I have for you is the first thing is we're going to just briefly define what is type 1 diabetes, because there are two types of diabetes. And I'm going to talk about some statistics which will give you an idea of what is the market size, what is the current cost of treating type 1 diabetes, what are the indirect costs for treating type 1 diabetes, what is the cost of VCTX210 type 1 diabetes therapy, which is a collaboration between CRISPR and Viacyte. It's in clinical trials right now. So we're going to talk about the status of the clinical trial, where is VCTX on the FDA approval cycle, and a conclusion on how does VCTX impact investment in CRISPR Therapeutics. So this is what I'm going to talk about. And the reason I'm not talking about Viacyte is because Viacyte is a privately held company. Johnson & Johnson is one of the investors in Viacyte. There are 5 other investors. They're all investment companies. So we don't have any opportunity to participate in Viacyte, but we do have opportunity to participate in CRISPR Therapeutics, which, as I mentioned before, is one of my favorite stocks in the genomic sector. So let's get looking into this, each of these items one by one, and increase our knowledge of what CRISPR Therapeutics is doing. This will help us to better understand the scope and value of this company. So what is type 1 diabetes? Basically, type 1 diabetes is something that is classified as an autoimmune disease, which results in the destruction of insulin-producing beta cells of the pancreas. So I'm going to show you a small video clip after this slide, which I have taken from the Viacyte website. It very, very clearly describes how type 1 diabetes happens and what is VCTX210. It's a very elegant solution. You'll appreciate it once you see the video. So we'll talk about that. The resulting insulin deficiency due to destruction of the beta cells, insulin-producing beta cells, causes inability for the body to process sugars. Therefore, the blood glucose levels increase, which leads to dizziness and which leads to destruction of various organs of the body. Typically, people who are suffering from diabetes end up dying of heart attack. Some lose their eyesight, some have their kidneys compromised. Gums and teeth also become a victim to the disease, because when the blood glucose levels are not appropriate in the body, it changes the entire ecosystem of the body in which all those organs like to survive. They deviate from normal parameters, and therefore it kills the organs. And type 1 diabetes is different from type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes occurs due to insulin resistance. So personally, in my family, there is diabetes, type 2 diabetes. So what I'm doing is intermittent fasting right now. And the theory of the intermittent fasting is that if you eat within an 8-hour window and fast for 16 hours, and within that 8-hour window, you just eat at the beginning of the 8 hours and end of the 8 hours, then what happens is that the body is deprived of sugar. The way the system works is that every 45 minutes, if you eat anything, the body will produce insulin. And when the body gets flooded with insulin, because we are eating a little bit here and a little bit there throughout the day, the cells are constantly getting a barrage of insulin, and ultimately they become resistant to insulin. They stop processing the glucose, and then I believe the liver converts that into fats and stores it somewhere. And when this process goes on and there is not enough place to store fats, you get into more severe problems. So type 2 diabetes can be controlled and managed with a change in lifestyle. And you can also prevent type 2 diabetes to a great extent by being very careful of how often you eat and what you eat, and by avoiding sugars and doing a lot of exercise. It's possible. But with type 1 diabetes, it's very difficult because there is no cells in the pancreas which are capable of producing insulin. They've all been compromised. That's why type 1 diabetes is a much more difficult condition. So in terms of statistics about type 1 diabetes, in US, the prevalence of diagnosed type 1 diabetes was 0.55% of the population, representing 1.3 to 1.8 million US adults, depending on the source of information. Now, this is just the US population. If a drug was introduced for curing type 1 diabetes, then obviously it's going to go to Europe, it's going to go to Australia, it's going to go to India, China, all the places. It's a huge market, but we are just talking about the US market here for the time being. By 2050, 5 million people are expected to be diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. An estimated 64,000 people are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes each year. And worldwide, an estimated 42 million people have type 1 diabetes. Diabetes now costs an average of $16,752 per year. As per reports, the 2017 analysis also documents substantial indirect costs related to lost productivity due to diabetes and its complication. It hurts the company's bottom lines as well, and the family's budget as well. The 2017 analysis also indicates that after adjusting for inflation, costs have increased since 2012 due to both 11% increased prevalence of diabetes and 13% increase in the cost per person with diabetes. Because as inflation comes in, cost of everything goes up, so does the cost of the medicine and the opportunity cost of not having diabetes. This is coming from diabetesjournal.org. That's where I've taken the information. And people with diagnosed diabetes incur average medical expenditure of $16,752 per year, of which $9,601 is attributed to diabetes. And the other is in terms of absenteeism, lost opportunities, and those kind of factors that are put together. The largest components of medical expenditures are hospital inpatient care, that is 30% of the total medication cost. Another 30% goes towards prescription medication to treat the complications of diabetes. Another 15% goes to anti-diabetic agents and diabetes supplies, and 13% goes to physician office visits. To give you an example of what happens with the lifestyle of a diabetic is that they are prone to injuries. Their feet has to be protected, so they need special footwear. They may end up having gangrene or other things if their feet is not properly protected, because they won't be aware of damages that can happen to their sole or their digits on the feet. So that is one aspect of the care. The other aspect of the care is that they may faint somewhere and they need to be taken care of. They have to be taken to the hospital immediately. They have to be given sugars to revive them. So there are a whole lot of the situations that happen which for whom the cost cannot be quantified. And because of each of these incidents of fainting or having some other organs compromised, there will be hospitalization and separate expenditure, which would not have happened if they didn't have type 1 diabetes. So one of the examples is heart-related ailments that are caused due to diabetes. So the problem is the potential heart attack, but it has been caused by type 1 diabetes. Likewise for kidney issues caused by type 1 diabetes. Even though the treatment is going to be for kidneys, to handle the compromised kidneys, the reason why it happened was because of diabetes. So that's how the cost goes on to $16,752 per year, on top of the $9,601, which consists of direct expenses related to diabetes, and the indirect expenses are on top of it. So it's a very serious disease. And the estimated total economic cost of diagnosed diabetes in 2017 was $327 billion. Since then, we have had a lot of inflation. So I bet this must be close to $500 billion now. A 26% increase from American Diabetes Association's previous estimate of $245 billion in 2012 dollars. So you can imagine the cost that is involved with diabetes for the society at large, and also the person and their family and their employer. So now we have the Viacyte collaboration with CRISPR, and this collaboration took place due to an agreement between CRISPR Therapeutics and Viacyte on September 2018. And in the agreement, they decided to collaborate and focus their efforts on the discovery, development, and commercialization of gene-edited allogenic stem cell therapies. Here is a video from Viacyte explaining their range of therapies, and I'll come back to you after the video.
Type 1 diabetes occurs when a person's own immune cells attack the insulin-producing beta cells in the pancreas. Without beta cells, the body can no longer produce insulin, a hormone which moves sugar from the blood into the organs after eating. If not controlled by insulin, high blood sugar can be life-threatening. Patients with type 1 diabetes must monitor their own blood sugar levels and must administer insulin multiple times a day, every day. Even the most careful type 1 patients with the best treatments available can have a hard time controlling their blood sugar adequately. And, as a consequence, type 1 patients may suffer a number of health issues. What if, instead of injecting insulin all the time, type 1 diabetes could be treated by simply replacing the missing beta cells? This is the idea behind Viacyte's groundbreaking technology. Viacyte has a family of product candidates in development, each of which consists of an implantable pouch containing cells designed to behave like those in the pancreas. Based on Viacyte's leading research, the cells are carefully and fully differentiated from stem cells into precursor cells of the pancreas. Since these cells are made from a stem cell line, there's a virtually unlimited supply available for manufacturing Viacyte's product candidates. Once differentiated into pancreatic precursor cells, the cells are loaded into a pouch, which is then implanted under the skin. After implantation, these cells are designed to mature into all the types of cells in the endocrine pancreas. Once matured, the implanted cells have the potential to monitor blood sugar and respond with secretion of insulin and other hormones to control blood sugar levels. Viacyte's product candidates differ based on the type of pouch or cells. For PEC Direct, the pouch is designed to allow blood vessels to enter the device and directly interact with the implanted cells. Because the implanted cells are not hidden from the immune system, patients who receive PEC Direct must take immunosuppressants, making it suitable only for people with high-risk type 1 diabetes. For all insulin-requiring diabetes, Viacyte is developing PEC NCAP. For PEC NCAP, the pouch is designed to fully contain the implanted cells, but still allow vital nutrients and proteins, such as oxygen, glucose, insulin, and other hormones, to travel between the cells inside the device and the blood vessels, which grow along the outside of the device. This device is also designed to prevent immune cells from directly contacting the implanted cells, so they may thrive and function without provoking an immune response or being destroyed. For PEC QT, cells will be specially engineered to avoid provoking an immune response, potentially eliminating the need for immunosuppressants. The cells will likely be housed in the same type of pouch used for PEC Direct, which allows direct interaction between blood vessels and the implanted cells. But because the cells are designed to be immune evasive, they are not expected to be rejected by the immune system. With almost 2 decades of research and leadership in the field, 2 product candidates in clinical trials, and a 3rd in preclinical development, Viacyte believes it has the key elements needed to produce transformative therapies for all people who require insulin to treat diabetes. To learn more about Viacyte's technology and products, please visit our website, Viacyte.com.
As you saw in that video, this is almost like creating artificial pancreas and installing them in the body. And given the fact that the beta cells will have the same logic as actual pancreatic cells to respond to sugar, it probably could be a question of how many of these pouches have to be installed in a given person. So some metrics might have to be developed for those. That's what I imagine. But the clinical trials will give the answers, and CRISPR Therapeutics or Viacyte might come out with more insights into it. And we'll learn those details at that time. But right now, suffice to say that we are in clinical trials. VCTX210 is in collaboration with CRISPR, while VC02 and VC01 seen in the video belong to Viacyte. VCTX210 is a collaboration with CRISPR Therapeutics. The way I understand it after looking at the video is that VC01 is the pouch in which the blood vessels can go in and interact with the beta cells and needs immunosuppressants, whereas VCTX210 has got specially engineered beta cells where CRISPR Therapeutics has used CRISPR technology to make the modifications so that it can evade the immune system. And in VCTX210, exactly like VC01, the blood vessels will go into the pouch and interact with the beta cells inside the pouch, but will not need immunosuppressant. That's my understanding, and it makes it a much more superior product, in my opinion. In terms of cost, I don't expect Viacyte to be talking about the cost of VCTX210 because they're a privately held company, and I suspect that CRISPR Therapeutics will also not talk about the potential cost of VCTX210 because they may have some kind of constraints on what they can communicate regarding the product because of the agreement they have with Viacyte. So at this point of time, I couldn't find any cost estimate of what that therapy would cost once it is marketed. But we have seen what is the opportunity cost of type 1 diabetes. So that is the threshold up to which the market can support the cost. And I'm pretty sure that VCTX210 will come way below that. That's my opinion. If you look at the three products out here, this diagram shows you what kind of technology is involved in it and what kind of patient target they are looking for and whether immunosuppressant is needed or not. It's same thing like what we saw on the video, but provided in a diagrammatical form. You can pause this slide and watch it subsequently if you want more information, or go to the Viacyte website. They have the pipeline out there. More about VCTX is that the collaboration with CRISPR Therapeutics and Viacyte is only for VCTX210 and nothing else. And in the Viacyte pipeline, VCTX210 is behind VC01 and VC02. And VCTX210 has been designated as an investigational new drug, and it's allogenic, it's gene edited and stem cell derived product. That's the classification. That's how it has been described in various literatures that I have seen. VCTX210 is more complex and needs no immunosuppression, as I spoke in the earlier side. In February 2022, CRISPR Therapeutics and Viacyte announced dosing of the first patient for VCTX210 phase 1 clinical trials. We haven't had any updates since then, but we might probably expect to get some maybe a few months down the line, and we'll know what's happening with the therapy. Neither company has provided any information about the cost, nor has the press asked these companies about what's going to be the likely cost of VCTX210. So those questions might come up when the product is much closer to commercialization, I hope. In terms of FDA approval cycle, as per FDA records, VCTX210 is active and is in phase 1 clinical trials. We expect to receive data of the trials in December 2022. Somewhere around the end of the year, we'll have the data, and that will give us a better idea of the success of this product. And in terms of agreements, I went through their agreements, which is filed in NASDAQ. If you are interested, you can go and have a look at that. Under the terms of their agreement, CRISPR and Viacyte will jointly seek to develop an immune evasive stem cell line as a first step on the path to an allogenic stem cell derived product. It doesn't say diabetes, type 1 diabetes, but that's what they are going for. Upon successful completion of these studies and identification of a product candidate, the parties will jointly assume responsibility for further development and commercialization worldwide. And for this purpose, they have created committees. They call it JCC. I don't know the full form. I didn't go into those details because we want to keep this video short and we want to give everything of essence. But basically, they have a governance structure in place with someone in charge of the collaboration to spearhead and direct it, and also to take various kinds of decisions. They have committees. So that's how they have organized themselves. Upon execution of the agreement, Viacyte will receive $15 million from CRISPR, which at CRISPR's election may be paid in either cash or CRISPR stock, and additional $10 million in promissory notes. That's the commercial arrangement. And this is being driven by CRISPR. For a change, CRISPR is paying the money rather than receiving the money. And Viacyte is doing all the work, and it's going to receive the money. Each party will be entitled to 50% of the net sales during the term of the joint development and commercialization agreement. And CRISPR shall be allotted 60% of such program expenses, and Viacyte will be allowed 40% of such program expenses while the development is taking place. And once the development is complete and commercial sale of the product is announced, each party will be allocated 50% of such program expenses. And that's how the agreement describes the revenue and cost sharing and the responsibilities. In terms of my own conclusions about this, after going through all this, is that it's a great move by CRISPR to identify type 1 diabetes treatment as a candidate in their pipeline and to seek collaboration with Viacyte. VCTX210 will be a superior product to Viacyte's own two type 1D candidates, and therefore I don't consider them to be competition, but rather providing scalability depending on the budget of the person. If they are willing to pay, I would say VCTX210 is the Cadillac version, whereas the others are commercial carrier version. That's how I would describe them. That is VC01 and VC02. Perfect synergy between the two partners, because CRISPR Therapeutics knows how to handle CRISPR-Cas9 and modify the stem cells. And Viacyte has got great expertise with the type 1 diabetes delivery mechanism, and because of their VC01 and VC02 experience. This diversifies CRISPR's risk, one with Vertex and one with Viacyte. So CRISPR has got its own candidates with CAR-T, and then it has got a collaboration with Vertex for sickle cell disease, where Vertex is paying it, and it has now got a collaboration with Viacyte, where it is paying Viacyte. So it's a nice diversification of CRISPR Therapeutics risk, and it creates a new revenue stream once this particular therapy gets approved by FDA. Potential pricing elasticity can be determined based on current direct and indirect costs of diabetes treatment. So when I say pricing elasticity, what I mean is the tolerance of the market to accept a price tag. It depends on how much the opportunity cost is for type 1 diabetes. We saw that in the earlier parts of the presentation. Larger volumes of pouch production can reduce unit costs, therefore the margins can increase. Lack of information on implantation, logistics, and cost prevents any further assessment of net revenue, because we don't know how expensive it's going to be to implement these patches, what kind of agreements will be needed at clinics, whether it's just going to be sold, whether it has to be refrigerated. We don't know any of those things. So once we get an idea of that, it will be possible to come up with some revenue models for this therapy. 6,400 people are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes each year, assuring the replenishment of the market, because as more and more children are born and they start aging, every year we are having a new influx of T1D people who need fresh pouches. And I do not know whether these pouches are a lifetime pouch or they have to be replaced once in every 5 years. Probably the pouch is biodegradable. I do not know those things. So I would imagine that there is net new patients to be treated, and also there might be replacement treatment for existing patients. These estimates do not consider worldwide market segment, and this is very, very conservative estimate. So now I'm going to talk about a very rough revenue calculation. This is like spitballing, and please do not hold me to it. And if you feel like laughing, just go ahead and laugh. But I thought I'll just venture out there with some rough calculations. So I hope this is entertaining for you. Let's assume the therapy is priced at $9,500, which is just under the current cost of managing diabetes annually, which is around $9,600. And that, as you can recollect, that was an old number. It does not include subsequent inflation. In the last year itself, we have had heavy inflation. And right now, our major problem in the market is 8.5% inflation. So we'll all agree that 9,500 is a reasonable estimate, considering the direct cost of handling diabetes. The total cost of handling diabetes per patient is 16,500, which is the indirect part also included. But I'm just looking at the direct cost and taking cost that is under that at 9,500. And assume that out of the 1.3 to 1.8 million people in US, who have got type 1 diabetes, we are just going to assume 500,000 of them are going to be treated in the first year. And if we do that, we have $4.75 billion as the revenue. Half of that will come to CRISPR Therapeutics. Every subsequent year, there will be more new patients, because around 68,000 new patients are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes every year. Some of them are likely to come in for the pouches. And depending on the frequency of replacing the pouches, there can be repeat patients coming for replacement of their pouches in subsequent years. So that also becomes a market segment. And all of this is only in America. And if instead of 500,000, you're going to take 100,000, we can do that also and calculate what could be the revenue divided by half. That is CRISPR Therapeutics revenue. And this is just the American revenue. We are not talking about worldwide licensing or royalties or worldwide sales revenue or anything. But if it is successful and if it's introduced in the United States, it's definitely going to go to Europe, Australia, Japan, and other places. and there will be more revenue. What method of licensing they do, what method of production they do, that's a different question. Also, I suppose that there will be a lot of patients who are willing to try this out. Probably the constraint is going to come from the manufacturing angle. How soon can they manufacture? What's going to be the logistics of distribution? Whether it needs a temperature controlled transfer for the pouch, whether there should be special training for the surgeons who are going to implant this. All those issues have to be worked out. The initial year, the margin may not be that high, because all these infrastructures and agreements and everything will have to be put in place. It's going to cost, but every subsequent year, the system becomes much more streamlined and the margins go up, and potentially the cost of the therapy will also go down, and still CRISPR and Viacyte both will make a lot of money out of this, and a lot of patients will get much better quality of life. So it's a win-win for everybody. So this is another reason why I'm bullish on CRISPR Therapeutics. It has a great management, and it's being very proactive in its approach towards developing its pipeline, and many of the pipeline candidates are in advanced stage, showing the leadership that CRISPR Therapeutics has in the market. So I'm bullish on CRISPR again. So that was my take on CRISPR Therapeutics and Viacyte. Of course, we have to talk about all other drugs or therapies in a later video. But having heard my case for Viacyte, VCTX210 and CRISPR, I would like to know, what is your opinion? Do you have any information? Do you think I have misrepresented anything out here? If you have some more insights, please feel free to share in the comment section. And if you like this video, please do not forget to put a thumbs up there, press the like button so that YouTube can show this to many people on YouTube, and our channel can be discovered by more people. And if you have not yet subscribed, why not? Please subscribe. It will only motivate me to come up with much more in-depth videos on CRISPR related topics, as well as stock market related topics, which will be of interest to you. Thanks, and have a great day, and I hope you have a great weekend. Bye for now.